All righty, welcome back to another great episode of The Human Role. So today we are going to dive into the employee experience, and I have the perfect guest, David No. So David actually has not one, but two HR certifications, y'all. PHR and SHRM CP. So if anyone has sat for those exams, you know how much of a feat that is. So kudos to David, but he also comes with almost 2 decades of experience in the HR space. He is the HR manager at Payroll Partners and then also hosts SpeakEasy podcast and live stream as well. So he has great insight, very good, candid conversations. And I'm really excited to have him on today to really give the employee perspective side, especially based on all of his experience. So David, thank you so much for joining today. I'd love for you just to give my network a little bit of your background, how you got here today, your journey. For those of you who may not know him, I'm sure many of you do, but for anyone who's new here, I love to just kind of give you some time to give us, some insight on your journey, your path to the HR manager role.
So my path to where I'm at now has gone up and down in all kinds of directions. I didn't go into school thinking I'd be in HR. I wanted to be a professional golfer. That didn't pan out. And so now I deal with employee experience, client experience. HR payroll technology has been a thing for me for quite some time. I have gone through various roles in HR. I actually didn't have to take the SHRM exam. I got grandfathered in. So that just shows you how long I've had my certifications. That is obviously ever evolving in the world of HR with certifications. But, I've been in a lot of different roles, a lot of different industries, company sizes. And at the end of the day, the employee experience is so important and so much goes into that. So now in my role, I've been with Payroll Partners for 3 years. I've started my podcast last year, SpeakEasy HR. So I get to learn from all the guests talking about a variety of topics in there. And so I learn every time I have somebody on. And, the employee experience, just because you have two people sitting next to each other in an organization, their employee experience can be completely different. So it really, in today's workplace and everything going on in people's lives, I like to dive in and really figure out how I can improve it in our organization. That's part of our tagline, is to really elevate your payroll and HR experience. So what that means to everybody's a little different. So it really intertwines itself. And so when I started learning what HR was, it was kind of like, oh, this is what HR really does. They have to go through so much from hiring people and developing people and onboarding people. But then at the end of the day, you might have people that want to leave and move on to other opportunities, or they decide to not follow protocol policies and you have to end their employment. So I've had a really fun career, and it's just exciting to be a part of things like this and share my background and knowledge with your audience. So thanks for having me on.
Yes, thank you for being here. Talk about getting lucky with your certification. So kudos to you. And then I love hearing about everyone's journey because everyone's different. I would say I just fell into payroll and then got into taxation and then HR operations. So it's hilarious to hear that you wanted to be golfing because now here you are today, totally different journey. So we have to table that for maybe another separate personal conversation, but let's dive into the employee experience. We really want to just get into what works, what doesn't work. I have been saying on my podcast for many episodes now that we are now in like an employee market instead of an employer market, especially since COVID, especially because we have different generations in the workspace. And, the younger generations are demanding a lot more flexibility and they definitely have a different mindset, which I am rooting for them to kind of help change things a little bit along the way. But it's a lot different from our generations and people above us as well. I'm so curious first. I'd love to get your opinion on what you think exactly the employee experience is. You were kind of dipping into that a little bit, but really why it matters to you now more than anything, especially in the times that we're in. I will just say that.
Hi, I'm Carmen Hudson. I'm the host of the Recruiting Book Club, and we're starting our second season. I'm so excited to bring to you another set of guests of recruiters who have written books. We are excited to have some very special guests this season. We've got Shally, we've got Craig Fisher, James Ellis, and quite a few other people that we're going to bring on board to tell us about what they wrote, why they wrote it, and maybe we'll veer off into a conversation about recruiting on all types of topics and subjects that happen in our industry. So I hope you can join us. I'm excited.
Yeah, I go back to kind of how you define employee experience. Everyone maybe have a different thought into how you define it. For me, it's really summarizing every touch point with an employee within an organization from the time that they're seeing a job posting to the time that you're going through their career growth to the end of their exit, whether it's they're retiring or they move on to a different opportunity. So it's not just those perks, those free benefits, the coffee, the snacks and donuts. It's really how people feel about working with you every day, whether you're an employee, whether you're a client. So how I look at that is HR has a big part in evolving the employee experience that ties in with the culture. And like you said, the younger generations, I try to ask them in interviews, making sure that we are aligned with what they're looking for. We want to make an employee experience unlike most in our industry. And how do we do that with all the competitors in our industry? So really having a honest conversation in an interview and really setting the tone right there, with what they're looking for in their next job. What weren't they getting in their current job? And a lot of people say, I want career growth. I want opportunities. I want challenging work. I just feel stuck. And a lot of times I just say, well, we can offer a lot of that. And so a lot of people get very interested in when we talk about what we're doing in our industry and what we're doing in our organization. So it really comes down to, how an organization can fit and align with people that they're bringing on board and really look at it as business outcomes. And what I mean by that is you're investing in the employee experience from making people happier, driving retention, driving the engagement, the performance of the employees, because you're not going to get 100% of everybody every day. That's not going to happen. But if you have positive employees, they're experiencing that with how they're being treated. The customer is going to see that the employees are enjoying their job and they provide great service. So it all goes in a cycle with how you treat the employee and how they treat your customer. So it's all relative to the industry. I know that. So it's not going to be a one size fits all either.
Yeah, I like the mention of not getting 100% of everyone every day, right? Like life happens, right? Like none of us are perfect, and things happen, personal, work-wise. Sometimes when we're trying to figure out the different personalities within, our space can be a real challenge too. So I really do like that. And I also, from an HR stance, I think of employees as our clients, right? Like to me, I just feel like we have to treat them like that, right? And so that will always make a difference and just being relatable and authentic. And sometimes naturally we get caught up in our day-to-day because we're so inundated. It's almost really hard sometimes to extend an olive branch where we really need to make a sticky note, whatever you need to do, and just spend some time, if it's not daily, at least weekly, to walk around and talk to people. Or if we're now home or hybrid, send a note, send an email, send something like that. Because I think that that's also missing at times in the workplace.
Yeah, definitely.
So biggest misconceptions, right? I know as we talk about the employee experience, I know employers try to improve the employee experience. And there's lots of memes and jokes and stuff going on where, hey, look, we have a pizza day, or, we're bringing bagels or coffee, something of that nature. I think that's just getting, in my opinion, you guys, not all. I mean, and sometimes that is helpful. So I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, right? But it's like, I know at times that's appreciated, but sometimes that's just kind of like, okay, we're coming into the office now, almost like an expectation a little bit. What would you say are some biggest misconceptions that employers do, to try to change the employee experience? And if that could be completely missing it, with employees, and if we really need to revamp that thought process?
Yeah, a few things. The impact a manager has in shaping the employee day-to-day experience is so important. Poor managers, training them in a way that's going to improve the culture and employee experience is so important, because HR, in our roles in HR, we can only do so much. Leadership has a role, managers have a role. So it's those everyday moments, not really taking them for granted, not following through on feedback. I always talk to people about how are you getting feedback from your staff? Are you doing in-person one-on-one meetings? Are you doing surveys, pulse surveys every week? Are you treating it as a project for HR versus a company-wide mindset of how we can do better as a company. So there are a lot of things like you just said, the perks that you get, free coffee, free donuts and food and laid back environment where you can wear jeans and flip-flops. A lot of that stuff's great, but it comes down to if you feel like your manager cares about you in your role and they are there to be a supporter of yours in a manager role, in a mentor role, I think it goes a long way for a lot of people. And like you said, the younger generations want training. They want to be challenged. They want to be developed. They might be motivated by money, but people in their 20s, they might want to find a job where they just feel like they're making an impact. They find purpose in their work. Those kinds of things, I think a lot of companies miss the boat on. So it's kind of going back to the basics and really seeing how your managers interact with people on a day-to-day basis. If it's hybrid, there's a challenge there versus being in person. It's a different kind of conversation. You might be completely disengaged on your phone when you're on a Zoom call. You're not sitting face to face with your manager where that person puts their phone down and they're not being distracted. They're focused on that person. So that really shows someone a lot about how important that manager is making those conversations, and that is their full focus. Because I know people are just really distracted all the time. So that really can play a big part in it as well.
Yeah, I loved back to the basics, right? I've been having a lot of conversations with leaders and just in general. And sometimes it's like not that hard or not that costly to do something. You just get so caught in your head and you think it's going to cost something, or, your CFO has told you no before. So you're like, okay, I'm not going to, even bother. But sometimes it's not that difficult. Sometimes it's like, or if you reach out to someone who has experience in that space, like David Know himself, you can definitely find out that maybe it's not as hard as you think or not as costly as you think, or you can figure out how to get ROI out of it in a different way to better help your population. So I love that comment. And so let's talk about the employees themselves. So say the employer, maybe they're missing the bucket there, or maybe they are landing it, but there's still something that the employee feels they're missing. How can the employees themselves really take ownership of their own growth within their own career path?
Yeah, a few things. First, I think they can be very proactive in the communication that they have and having a voice for themselves, not just doing it during an annual performance review. It's the one-on-one meetings with their manager, how the employer asks for feedback. Hopefully, it's more than just on an annual basis. Having open communication, it's a two-way street. So the employees can really drive that and really speak up and not just sit around and complain every day. I've heard it, and people just complain, and it's like, okay, well, I know you have a frustration, but what are some of the solutions that you have? And they're like, well, that's your job. Well, not really. Like I can help drive that change, but if you have a problem and you don't have a solution to that problem, then it's really difficult to make a change. So that's one. And just really investing in your own growth as an individual, like finding mentorship opportunities, training opportunities, programs that can help you in your industry, whether it's HR, get involved in local HR communities, SHRM chapters, finding ways that you can be around like-minded people outside of your company, building those relationships and people that you can lean to as you are going through your career. So whether you're new to your industry and you may not have people within your four walls at your job or when you're working from home, find people in your network, go on LinkedIn, find people that are in similar jobs and really figure out if that organization that you're in really aligns with your work and your values long term. Because if you can do that, you have a likelihood of staying with that company. If you don't have that, then you might be ready to maybe make a switch and go to another job, because people don't stay with companies 5, 10, 20 years anymore. When I look at resumes, it's every 2 or 3 years I see people changing. So I really ask in interviews, like, what happened there? What happened there? Oh, I was laid off. They had a downsize. COVID happened. We got acquired. Our structure of leadership changed and I didn't like it. So a lot of times it's not everyone's just quitting a job or getting fired. So I look at a resume nowadays, and I look at resumes all the time, and it's like, I really want to know what their path was from job A to B and what happened. So those are some of the things that I think employees can really do and really take ownership in their career, in their job, and navigate through their career that way. I think they'd be very successful and happy.
To your point, yes, no one's really, not no one. I mean, there's some anomalies, right? Some people that are still naturally staying with companies for a while, but for the most part, people are switching within 2 to 3 years. I think that's almost like known, or I could be wrong here, but like almost like an expectation that someone is going to be, there for a few years. I remember like a decade ago plus starting like my career path, like some recruiters would not even look at a resume if someone was jumping around in their opinion too much like that, right? So I think now we're more open to it and it's more kind of like expected and might have been frowned upon, but now it's kind of like, okay, they may have switched up. They may have more experience than someone internally who has been there for 10, 15 plus years. So that external experience goes a long way too. So you mentioned like the career mobility piece for employees. I'm curious on what role you think career mobility will play in a heavier positive employee experience for employees.
Yeah, absolutely. It is one of the most powerful drivers, I think, in a positive employee experience right now, because it really taps into the deeper than just job satisfaction for somebody. So when you talk about growth, purpose, sense of future with an organization, employees want to see that. They want to see a clear path for advancement, for development of their skill set, getting certified. And if you do that, they will be more engaged. They'll be more loyal. You might have to prove to them that you are going to do what you say. For example, for us, we promote certifications. We promote certifications with HR, SHRM, payroll. And so the last 2 years, we've gone through a transition with the state of Kentucky, I was able to get a training grant. And with those funds, we were able to start a career development training program. So we now have 10 plus people on our staff. So it's 25% right now of our staff are certified. We're going to get more this year certified. We're going to bring in people to get certified. So it's really important. And when I tell people that in an interview, it's not cheap to get certified. I mean, it is expensive. And so they're like, wow, I would love to do that. And when I hear someone get excited about that we would invest in them to get certified and that they're not going to have to pay for that out of pocket, they look at that as, it's beyond their compensation of a salary, on a yearly basis. So it's not always about the promotions and, a lot of that plays into it, but lateral moves, getting people cross-functional, trained in projects and get collaborative on ways that they can learn more about the organization. I always look at somebody when I'm interviewing, I'm like, okay, we're hiring them for a position in whatever, payroll. With their background, could I see them in another job in our company? And a lot of times I lean to that and I tell a manager like, yeah, we're bringing them in as a payroll specialist. I could see them becoming a project manager. I could see them becoming a manager. I really feel like they could be with us beyond a 2-year time frame. If we can provide them all of those opportunities to promote from within, it's going to make it so much easier to retain people. And, you can't have 100% retention, just like you can't get 100% out of somebody. So those younger generations value the development. They go to education, they go through their career focus within whatever they want to get into, and it changes. People move around. Just like me, I went to college for sport management. I wanted to do something in sports, golf, something. And I still play golf. I play golf for business. But, again, it's getting people excited about what we have available for them in an organization. And that all aligns with the employee experience for sure.
Yeah. And talk about priceless, right? Like just the cost. I mean, I think that's also what steers people away at times when you're talking about those certifications, going through the training classes. Even if you don't do a training class, just purchasing the book and purchasing and paying for it, actually taking the test is one thing. So having a company that backs that, I think also triggers loyalty, where it's like, okay, you all help them. And then you're also helping them on their career trajectory and like making it clear that, okay, like, you're going to start here, but we do have a path for you. And the company's growth can speak for that itself, right? So to get you into a project management role, and that just kind of keeps the wheel spinning. And then if that person does get promoted to a project manager, then they're a testimony for the next person who comes in and can train that person or help be, a listening ear to that person. So it's all, a good circle, right? That I think spins positivity. So really happy to hear Payroll Partners is out there and working on that and getting that out there. So you guys go check out Payroll Partners. Also reach out to David directly too if you have any questions. I really want to stress how important that is. I know we sometimes get all the negative insight, right? And so this is a really positive insight. And a lot of times, we know about the benefits when it comes to medical, dental, vision, maybe any other like ancillary benefits. But when we talk about like these certifications and the backing of that and additional education, that's something that not all companies are offering, or there's a limit to that. And right. So just hearing about a company that's offering that, like, had I had that 15 years ago, I wouldn't be struggling to get back to studying, now at my stage in life when you haven't done it in so long, right? So I think that's really definitely a game changer. So kudos to you all over there.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So last question I wanted to pick your brain about, we're talking about the employee experience, but just for, my HR leaders out there, what's some things that they can do to really help bridge the gap between the employee experience and then also how like the company delivers things, as we were kind of talking about. Sometimes companies can like miss the bucket a little bit.
If you can listen with intention and really act quickly on those small wins, I think it goes a long way. So start with truly listening. That really means that having those regular, honest conversations, those genuine conversations with people, gathering feedback. I sit with new hires and I try to get a good understanding of how it's been over the first 90 days. And is it what you expected when we interviewed you? And if not, what can we do to help you get back on track with thinking that this was a good move for you to come on board with us? And most of the time, it's been great. The last year or two that I've been involved in this recruiting effort, we are giving them a good sense of what they're getting into. We are very honest and upfront that we are a growing business. We don't have everything figured out, but we are on the right path and giving people the chance to grow with us as we are continuing to grow quickly. So just those small, intentional, quick conversations with people go a long way. So it really does help build trust. It really signals the agility of an employee that really feels like they can be a part of an organization's success moving forward. And it really can create momentum. Those small changes, streamlining things, I think really, it really helps somebody understand like what changes are happening for what reason. So the communication and follow-up, it really is important too. So clear communication, listening with intention, and acting on that, I think goes a long way. You can't go through sending a survey and every little thing that people give you as feedback. You can't implement everything. You can't change everything. I've done that before, and there have been some really good pieces of ideas that have come back. And so we've been able to identify that. And I try to ask people, like, explain our culture in a few words. And the perception of everybody is a little different, but it all aligned back to how we treat our people, that we are a company that cares, and we show that. And it really goes into how managers are genuinely caring for their team. For example, our payroll manager, she is going through study groups with those folks getting certified. So we want people to go through that process, get certified, and pass the certification test the first time. Try to get through it. And, most times that person studying has to go to a study group somewhere else. I had to go to a local college, community college that offered a PHR certification study group. And we're kind of doing it internally. And so she's taking her time out of her week to help this team study for their exam. And we've had great success with people passing. And it just goes a long way for our team to see that we really care. We're not just going to throw you a manual to get certified and say, hey, go figure it out. Good luck. If you don't pass, you're going to pay us back. Or, so, those little things can go a really long way for people. And I think that's why we have such a high retention within our small organization.
Yeah, talk about really stressing someone out when they think they have to pay you back if they don't pass.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like the anxiety that automatically creates, that just gave me flashbacks a little bit. But I definitely think definitely being intentional, relatable, authentic really goes a long way. And just talking to your people, reaching out, and then ensuring that it's a good group, like family type of group, right? We're helping people help people along the way. That's a really, really good point there too. So thank you so much, David, for being on. Your insight was great. I also want to make sure I mention again the SpeakEasy HR podcast that David does. We'll also have that connected to this post as well. So be sure to check him out. I mean, lots of great conversations over there, lots of great guests. As you can see, he has a very cool background. He's on air, like people. So really cool setup there. So check it out. Is there anywhere specific we can catch the SpeakEasy HR at all?
You can just go to speakeasyhr.com. That has all the content where you can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn. I do them live, so they're a lot of fun. So check them out, but you can go to Spotify, any of the podcast platforms, or part of the Work Defined podcast community as well. So a lot of great podcasts out there, including yours. Definitely go to speakeasyhr.com and you can find all the info.
How easy is that? And yeah, shout out to Work Defined too for bringing all of us together. So it's a really great network of people. But thank you again, David, for being on. Really appreciate having you. Maybe we'll try to do a follow-up, conversation in the coming months as well, as things are ever evolving in the world that we live in right now.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
No worries. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for joining. I will be back in another few weeks with another great episode. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.